A very good afternoon to everybody in this last session of the day. And this is the second paper presentation session by the participants. I warmly welcome all of you in this second paper presentation. Thank you all of you for registering as a paper presenter. All of you have done an excellent work. Your abstract was very interesting. You are selected from many abstracts that were submitted. So obviously there was a kind of a quality in your abstracts. We hope that your paper also will be equally qualitative when you present it. Some of the instructions which were given earlier also in written form to all of you, that you have to stick to the timeline, 8 minutes within which you have to complete your presentation. If you have any technical problems, you have to sort it out very quickly. You might have done a rehearsal with your family and friends, so you don't face any problem. But in case that happens, then we will take the turn of the another participant, and then we will switch over to you again for that. All of you will put off your microphone. You can put your video on, but see that your camera angle is facing your face, and there is no unnecessary movement in the room when the camera is on. If you want to move around, please put off your camera and do not move without putting off a camera from the screen. Sound, everybody will put it on mute. Only the speakers will turn it on there. I switch over to Vaidehi madam to anchor the event and announce the names of the participants so that one by one they can come and present their views. Vaidehi Haryani.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, one and all. And on behalf of Department of English, I welcome you all on board again. We will begin the presentation. You will get 8 minutes to present your presentation. After completion of 6 minutes, I will give you a warning so that you can wind up in 2 minutes. Best wishes to all the presenters. I would like to invite Baiju Krishnan sir to start with the presentation. After this, Reddygari Yamini will be ready with her presentation. Thank you.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Is it visible? Hello?
Yes, sir. It is visible. Now you can start.
Good evening, everyone. I am Baiju Krishnan, and I am a research scholar in the Department of English and Communications from the University. Today, I am going to present a paper titled Human Self-Destruction and Literature, a review of portrayal of epidemics in literature. The human tryst with epidemics is not new. The writers over hundreds of years have searched and explored the effects of epidemics in their writings. It was Homer who utilized the term epidemios for the first time, and he used it for the returning locals in Odyssey. The word was first pushed as a clinical term in a treatise by Hippocrates. Also, in the Septuagint, a translation of the Old Testament into the Greek by 70 Greek Jews from the Alexandria, this word is used in the Book of Kings to describe the 10 plagues of Egypt. The other work of the 14th century is Boccaccio's Decameron, which inspired Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, provides an authentic description of the pestilence in Florence. Chaucer's portrayal of plague in the Pardoner's Tale was in all probability inspired by Boccaccio. Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, 1627, Bacon envisioned a utopian island by the name Bensalem, home to the people of the lost city of Atlantis. Here, the foreign seafarers were initially quarantined to protect islands from the possible diseases. Other work is Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year, in which a detailed narrative of events, anecdotes, and statistics regarding the Great Plague of London of 1665 are portrayed. Coming to next work, that is The Last Man, 1826, by Mary Shelley, was one of the first apocalyptic novels telling of a future world that had been ravaged by a plague. A few persons appear to immune and avoid contact with others. In 1842, the American poet and novelist Edgar Allan Poe published The Masque of the Red Death. It is a short story, unique in its literary tradition of the plague by focusing only on the metaphorical element of the topos. Through the personification of the plague represented by a mysterious figure disguised as a Red Death victim, the author mediates on the inevitability of death. Now let's go to the 20th century works. I have taken some important works. This one is The Scarlet Plague, which was originally published and written by Jack London.
Yes, Baiju Krishnan, let me interfere for a while.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a PPT?
Sir, this is a Word file, sir, and I am...
Oh, okay, you're not making presentation. Then can you start your video?
Sir, the screen is on, sir. Is it not visible?
No, it is visible, but there is no PPT. So if you want to show your face when you are talking.
Okay, sir. Okay.
If it is convenient to you, it is not compulsory.
Sir, am I visible?
Yeah, and maybe it will take some time. Yeah. Have you switched on your camera?
Yes, sir. I have switched on, but whenever I am sharing this presentation, camera is going off, sir.
No, but your presentation, are you showing anything in
Yes,
PPT?
sir. It's there.
Although
Yes,
it is
sir,
not
yes.
visible. No, it is not visible. So you will have to again share.
Okay, so
Yeah, again try. Now you are visible, but now if you want to show, put your camera on and okay, now you are presenting. Okay.
sir, is it visible, sir?
Okay, now it is visible. Yeah, please continue. Yeah.
So I was talking about the 20th century works about the Scarlet Plague, which was originally published by Jack London. It is set in a ravaged and wild America. The story takes place in 2073, 60 years after the spread of the Red Death, an uncontrollable epidemic that depopulated and nearly destroyed the world in 2013. One of the few survivors tells this story to their grandsons about the pandemic and how it got spread in the world, and also about the reactions of the people to contagion and death. Next one is Albert Camus' Plague, which is a work that came in 1947. It narrates the spread of the bubonic plague that attacks the city of Oran in Algeria. The topos in this 1947 novel suggests the imminent struggles and destruction brought about by Nazism. That common decency that is embodied in Dr. Rex's struggle against the plague has a special resonance now. For contemporary readers, the fictional examination of a pandemic is almost synonymous with Camus' The Plague. Stephen King's The Stand, 1978. This work is also about a mutant virus that breaks out of a military research laboratory and kills the entire US population. Here the pandemic is influenza. And the next work that is Jose Saramago's Blindness, which is also about a white blindness, a potential disease, and the people were quarantined. And also this has been made as a film in 2008 of the same name, Blindness. Virus Hunter 1997 is a memoir of C.J. Peterson on the infectious disease containment. It also covers on the Ebola outbreak. Now let's go to the 21st century works. The Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooke is a 2001 work, which is also on bubonic plague. Set in 1665, it draws on the true story of the tiny English village of M. Brooks describes the extraordinary action taken by the villagers of M. They decided to voluntarily quarantine their town. So next is Margaret Atwood's dystopian trilogy. Here we have three works by her: Oryx and Craig 2003, The Year of Flood 2009, Mad Adam 2013. A Craig Wonder drug Bliss Plus causes a global pandemic deliberately caused by it, breaks out and begins wiping out the human race and causing mess. The second book focuses on religious sect called God's Gardeners, a small community of survivors of the same biological catastrophe depicted in Oryx and Crake. Mad Adam concludes the dystopian trilogy. The story continues with the same characters in the wake of the same biological catastrophe. Ghost Map is another work by Stephen Johnson, which talks about 1854 Broad Street cholera outbreak. Nemesis by Philip Roth is a work of fiction set in summer of 1944 that describes about polio and epidemic. Here the children are threatened with lifelong disabilities and death. The novel ends up with the children surviving. Dreamers is a work by Karen Thompson Walker. In her 2019 novel, The Dreamers, the writer Karen Thompson Walker conjures up a mysterious virus which is very deadly and highly contagious. In parallel with today's pandemic, the character in Walker's novel confronts
2 minutes more.
Shortage of face masks. There is a panicked run on the supermarkets, waves through a window to loved ones under quarantine. So before going to conclusion, there are many other works also which I have not given here. Actually, works like Superbugs by Matt McCarthy, works like Painkiller and Cherry. Cherry is a work by Nico Walker. These two works which talks about opioid crisis in US. That is narcotic painkiller overuse issues. And some works like Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. There are many other works like that, and let me conclude now. So my conclusion is that literature in responding to epidemics celebrates the enduring range of human responses, the gamut of feelings that rage against the onslaught of disease and death. The revisiting and rethinking about the portrayal of epidemics in literature in the context of the coronavirus pandemic makes the readers to feel the situation. The literature is prophetic about the portentous doom. So now the irony is fact has become stranger than fiction. Thank you all. Thank you. I would like to thank
you very much, Baiju sir.
I would like to thank Dilip Bharat sir for giving me an opportunity to present a paper in this webinar, and I also thank other participants and paper presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Reddygari Yamini to present her presentation, and after this, I would request Sonaji Rajput to be ready with your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, ma'am. Is my voice audible, ma'am? Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Is my voice audible? My warm greetings to everyone who are participating in this national webinar. I am Reddygari Yamini from Kannur. I am a postgraduate student in MA English Literature at Shailendra University, Tirupati. Prior to my presentation, I convey my deepest gratitude from the core of my heart to the organizers who have framed such a national webinar even during in this lockdown period. Right now, I am going to present a novel written by Albert Camus, The Plague. Plague is caused by Yersinia pestis, which is of 3 different types. Septic plague, pneumonic plague. As now COVID pandemic occurred, plague was also severe pandemic at all times. Is my PPT visible, ma'am?
Oh, you have to share your screen. Your presentation is not visible.
Is it visible now, ma'am?
No, it is not yet visible.
1 second, ma'am. The novel The Plague was written by Albert Camus. It was published in June 1947. Albert Camus was a French philosopher, author, and journalist. He was born on 7th November 1913 and died on 4th January 1960. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature at the age of 44 in 1957. He was born in Algeria to French parents. He was a representative of non-metropolitan French literature. He studied philosophy at the University of Algiers. Some of his notable works are The Stranger, The Myth of Sisyphus, The Rebel, and The Plague. The novel The Plague tells the story of a plague sweeping the French-Algerian city of Oran. The novel has been read as an allegorical treatment of the French resistance to Nazi occupation during World War II, pointing out the futility of human aspirations and the inevitability of suffering. His writing is greatly influenced by the poverty and illness of his youth. He also wrote extensively about the conditions of poverty in Algeria while working as a journalist for an colonialist newspaper. Coming to the theme of the novel. The central theme of the novel is suffering which crushes human beings both physically and spiritually. The plague, which is described as an irrational force and depersonalized evil, is the main cause of the suffering. It kills without regard to age or social status. It also causes exile and separation. The novel is set in the 1940s in the Algerian city of Oran. A strange thing has begun happening in Oran. Rats are emerging into the streets where they move awkwardly in a sort of dance, then bleed profusely and die. At first, there are just a few. Then their number grows. Soon rats are dying this way by the thousands. So many that they have to pile and burn. Dr. Bernard Ruiz, a physician, recognizes the way the rats are dying in odd, and now it is probably not a good sign. After a while, the rats stop dying. But before anyone can breathe a sigh of relief that the rat episode is over, people start showing disconcerting symptoms. They begin to die in much the same way as the rats. Dr. Castile, who works with Dr. Reeves, comes to believe the symptoms and those of the Black Plague. However, the city leaders are reluctant to acknowledge what is happening, even as the death toll grows, apathetic to the human suffering taking place under these noses. Eventually, the city leaders are forced to take the situation seriously and they quarantine the city. No one can enter or leave. Several things happen as a result. The city residents are plunged into despair and spend all their time talking about the bad of they are and how they miss up those who are far away. Raymond Brahmbhatt, a journalist visiting Oran from Paris, attempts to leave the city. When he is unsuccessful using normal channels, he pursues illegal ones. This leads him to strike up an acquaintance with Cotard, a smuggler who recently attempted suicide and was saved by the Joseph Brand, a man who is unsuccessful in job, marriage, and writing. Father Panilox, a priest, believes the plague is God's punishment for sin and says as much in a sermon. Jean Taru, a visitor confined to the city when it is quarantined, observes and keeps a journal of what is happening. He also recruits Dr. Reeves, Joseph Brand, and others to help fight the spread of plague. Yet the plague continues to ravage the city, filling hospitals and cemeteries as it becomes increasingly contagious. A serum is developed but turns out to be a failure. More people die, including the young man of a magistrate, Jean Taru, Dr. Ruiz's wife, and Father Penilox. Eventually, plague deaths begin to decline, and a new version of the serum seems to be effective. The quarantine is lifted, and the gates of the town are opened. Coming to the climax of the novel ends as a tragic comedy. Although the protagonists finally overcome the plague, many lives, including
Yamini,
yes, ma'am.
Yamini, you have just 2 more minutes to wind up.
Okay, ma'am.
You have 2 more minutes.
Okay, ma'am. There is also the certainty that the plague will appear again, whether in Oran or some other town. Dr. Reeves is revealed to be the narrator of the story, telling readers his motivation for writing this true account was to document the common suffering he witnessed so that it would not be forgotten. Thank you everyone for your kind attention. Once again, I convey my thankfulness to the organizers for creating such a wonderful opportunity and enriching our knowledge. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you, Yamini. Now I would like to request Shailendra sir to start with your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bhatt sir, for giving me an opportunity to present my views on the selected topic, that is pandemic in our Indian literature. Can I present now?
Yes, sir, you can start your presentation.
Is my PPT is visible? Hello?
No, sir, it is not yet visible. Please share your screen.
Okay, okay. Can you
Are you on laptop or mobile phone?
laptop, sir?
A laptop, then you will just move your cursor down so the window will pop up. Hi, okay. Yeah. Okay, yes, now visible. Now run the presentation.
Yeah, it is
Please.
visible, sir.
Okay, it is visible. Go on. Yeah,
Yes.
please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. My topic is portrayal of epidemics in Indian literature. So, what we have so many fictions and other things in our literature, right from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. There are so many references of epidemics and other things, and I have tried to just prepare an argument that all these things are very recurrent in nature, and so many novels, so many short stories have references of these things, and what we have learned in our life, and what we have learned from the literature. So my first thing, I'm just starting with Thomas Hardy's withered arm. There are few lines. She bared her poor cursed arm, and Davies, uncovering the face of the corpse, took Gertrude's hand and held it so that her arm lay across the dead man's neck upon a line, the color of an unripe blackberry which it surrounds. This is here when the COVID-19 like pandemic becomes so unbearable, where death is more soothing than the life itself. So we can see that from this Thomas Hardy's, and this is I have taken from the dead in the death disease in the ancient city. And first such references we get from Nirala's autobiography, that is Pulibhat, in which he has presented the vivid things, and the most important thing is that he lost all his maximum family members, including his teenage wife. And also there are references in which Mahatma Gandhi and other, they have suffered this Spanish flu, somehow they survived. Now, just coming to some of some of the points in the colonial era, the things seems to be very much present in the this contemporary society also. There is a reference of means epidemic in Coolie, where Lalu, a protagonist in Munkaraj Anand's famous novel Coolie, he says that why there is such a difference where we Indian people are living and suffering, and when there will be a time when we will be free from such disease. Just I am reading the second para. Means he dreams that one day bricks houses similar to those of the European mechanics near the new powerhouse will be built, but does not occur to him to question the economies of the humanity of a system that permits foreigners to live comfortably when the majority around them are dying of epidemics. And since Lalu is a very rebellious, he doesn't, so many persons have already talked about, the wrath of the deities, in which we can see still the temples of Sheetala Mata and other. So he is thinking that not only the government, the colonial government, but also God is very cruel to the poor people. It is written that nor can Lalu find any consolation in God. For if he has any belief at all, it is in an actively hostile deity beautifully caught in the impressions as the day grows dark. The same thing, if we can relate such things into to the COVID-19 situation, we can see thousands of homeless, lakhs of homeless, poor people, laborers, marginal people are just going by foot on the road, and they are so many persons of are dying under the trucks, hunger, and other things. So we can say that just the 1918 or 1920 situation or scene is very much present now also. There is no change. There are only two means class. There is a, maybe this COVID-19 or the pandemic is a mass murderer or a leveler, but still I can just tell you from the Kuli part also, and from the account of Mahatma Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, he has written that if we compare to the people who are dying, mostly women are dying, untouchables are dying, poor people are dying. The same thing. If you just think about the social just discrimination, or we just can see that there is a difference between poor people and rich people. We have very much an example of Dharavi. How we can expect from the people to maintain social distance when 10 persons are living in just one room? Can they quarantine and other things? Just seems to be very dishonest. And there is another, because
You
we can
have two
see
more
that, yes,
minutes.
yes, I beg just 1 2 more minutes more, then I will able to at least finish some of the things. Then I am coming to Paneshwar Nath Renu's Maila Archer, and a doctor. He lives behind the hindrance of what is now Bihar, where malaria, Kalajar, and numerous other epidemics ran havoc. Because those who are aware about Bihar, sometimes the floods, after floods, the epidemics cause mass murder, you can say that. Thousands and lakhs of people used to die of cholera. And also, we can see that in so many novels that epidemics and famines are interconnected. After every, we can see that famines, that epidemic was very much present, and vice versa. And also, we have some Kamla Tripachi's Pahigar is centered around 1857, and we have also some Hassan Naeem's. We have very much in every novel to have such examples. And what is more important, what we learn from the literature and my argument is that in epidemic or pandemic time also, we make very much discrimination, vulnerable groups, women and untouchables. Now, thanks to medical science and better condition, women are not much dying, but there are references where untouchables died of receiving any medical treatment, like in Doodh Ka Dam. This is a Premchand, as in Doodh Ka Dam. There is a reference that untouchable person succumbed to his death. Now, I am just concluding with some very famous lines of Nagarjuna, who is a he is regarded as a mass poet in Hindi. Nagarjuna or Vidyanath Mishra. I'm just reading. कई दिनों तक चूल्हा रोया, चक्की रही उदास, कई दिनों तक कानी कुतिया सोई उनके पास, कई दिनों तक लगी भीत पर छिपकलियों की गस, कई दिनों तक चूहों की भी हालत रही थी कस, दाने आए घर के अंदर कई दिनों के बाद, धुआं उठा आंगन से ऊपर कई दिनों के बाद, चमक उठी घर की आंखें कई दिनों के बाद, कौवे ने खुजलाए पांखें कई दिनों के बाद. With this, I conclude and thanks a lot, Bharat sir, for giving me an opportunity to present my paper. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shailendra sir, for your presentation. Now I would like to request Ved Mitra Shukla, Dr.Smita Nayak. Please be ready with your presentation. Thank you. Ved sir, you have to unmute your microphone. We are not able to listen to your voice.
Okay, namaskar to you all. Myself, Ved Mitra from Rajdhani College, Delhi University, New Delhi. My topic is Humanistic Therapy, Epidemic and Poetry, Rabindranath Tagore's Puratan Bhritya. During epidemic crisis, humanistic approaches become a kind of therapy. This fact is well narrated by Rabindranath Tagore in his long narrative poem Puratan Bhritya, that is the old man's servant. The problem of smallpox epidemic is taken here to convey the theme of humanistic concerns. In the time of pandemic COVID-19, the proposed paper makes an attempt to reread Puratan Bhritya with fresh perspectives. Puratan Bhritya was written on February 23 in 1895. It was finally published in a collection of poems entitled Chitra in 1896. In Bengali, the word Chitra can be meant by variously hued pictures. Therefore, the poem presents poet's different moods and inner conflicts inherent in his life. As the title of the book was given, the collection of the poems has compositions on various themes like life duty, nature of relationships, different aspects of women's relationship, feudal system, etc. The book comprises those poems which were written by the poet between 1893 and 1896. Keeping in view biography of the poet, it is also remarkable that in 1895, Tagore exerted all the influence to raise funds for the defense committee organized to fight the case of Lokmanya Tilak. He was also against the partition of Bengal. And in those days, plague spread over different parts of the country, and he tried his best to make arrangements to help the sufferers. No doubt, as per the annals, it was time of different epidemics like cholera, smallpox, malaria, diarrhea, etc. During the Indian famine of 1896-97, due to the prevailing epidemics, mortality rate had increased. The British government and social organizations participated in the relief works in their ways. Even the poet also raised the funds. But as we know, a poet has also the power of creativity. we find that Tagore utilized that poetic talent, and in his Chitra, a collection of poems of 1896, he included the his long narrative. He Yes, he included this poem Puratan Bhritya, and the problem of smallpox epidemic is taken here. In this poem, the poet tells us about the relationship of a master with his old servant, Chesta. It gives us a very practical picture of middle class household where the place of this old servant is indispensable, but at the same time is taken for granted. He has stayed in the household of the poet now for almost all his life and has become such an inseparable part of his family and is to assured of his place that even after becoming old, slow and forgetful, and even after apparently being driven out by the poet many times on the insistence of his wife, he dares to come back again with that same simple and untainted smile and again renders his service as before without a trace of malice, because he knows in his heart of hearts that his master loves him as his own brother. That year, the poet could save some money and he decides to go on a pilgrimage to Vrindavan, but he could not take his wife along because of escalating costs. However, in spite of her protest, he cannot resist taking Chesta along with him. So attached he is with this old servant. However, as ill luck would have it, he is attacked with smallpox. The master is attacked with smallpox, and all his fair weather friends evaporate into thin air. The only person who doesn't desert him and serves him with unflinching devotion, it was Chesta. He was proving to the last his friendship and loyalty. As soon as the master recovers, Chesta falls ill, and the poet feels that his old faithful servant has willingly taken on the burden of his terminal illness. So after 2 days of severe fever, Chesta falls to recover and finally succumbs to smallpox. As far as analysis of this narrative poem is concerned, it should be read in the context of humanistic concerns during an epidemic situation. Without the context, it becomes difficult for the scholars to read the poem with serious note. A known Bengali critic, Buddhdev Bose, finds that this poem is an insignificant poem among the several great poems of Tagore. He says that the merit of the poem Puratan Bhritya is only its poetic excellence, and the story has no value except its poetic charm. The story doesn't seem valuable to Bose because it doesn't read the poem in an epidemic context. Whereas in the time of COVID-19, a scholar can read in such poems deepest and insightful record of events during pandemics that provide consolation in times of need. In this regard, another known scholar, Harish Trivedi, also writes, literature regards each individual with compassion and goes deeper than what static our historical records can tell us. Literature may not explain away our fight of things such as pandemics, even as modern science sometimes can't, but it does become a source of consolation, a way of sharing our common humanist concerns, and in its own way provides the deepest and most insightful record of the events. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now I would request Dr. Smita Nayak to start with her presentation.
Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. Am I visible too?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You can start.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. respected dignitaries, and my dear friends. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share my views on the novel The Plague by Albert Camus. The title of my paper is Human Urge for Existence During Unexpected Extinction, with special reference to The Plague by Albert Camus. I have divided my paper in 6 parts: abstract, introduction, methodology, theoretical perspective, discussion and analysis, and concluding remarks. Due to time constraints, here I would like to speak only about 2 things, that is discussion and analysis and concluding remarks. Well, I concentrate in theoretical perspective. I have concentrated on 2 things. One is existential perspective, and secondly, the absurdity which is considered in this novel. I remember the myth of Sisyphus we studied during our graduation times. Actually, the journey of one's life starts in the womb, and it takes twists and turns when it comes in this world. All of us are aware that last few months, the entire world is going through an unexpected, challenging times, where the survival is becoming challenging. The urge to establish our existence and later on to gain power and rule is very natural to all of us, the human race. We have been fighting pandemics from times immemorial in various eras and have won this battle unitedly. Camus' novel, The Plague, is the best example of the humans who unitedly stood and fought this extinction. The present paper is an attempt to relook at the work in the present perspective. We the humans, we feel that we are immortals. This exactly refers to the people in the town Oran. Before the epidemic of plague broke, they felt that they are immortal, and they did not live in a real sense. They were just alive. Similar things happened with us. We always thought that we are immortal, and then we have overcome all the problems. But last few months, the situation has completely changed. We have come from Sulja Hua Zamana to the absurd and the helplessness in life. This reminds me of the myth of Sisyphus, where Camus first speaks about the meaninglessness of life, the absurdity of life. And with this outbreak of COVID-19, we have become very hard, we have become stigmatized, we have become psychologically disturbed. There have been issues when we are stuck up in the houses. There is no outlet to our emotions, and there is no expression to that. So this has been the issue which I have covered in this paper. Camus says, and I quote, "Being alive was always and will always remain an emergency. As one might put it, truly an inescapable underlying condition," unquote. The condition changes when we go through these pestilence. Somewhere it is said that pestilence is very common as wars. It catches people unawares, unprepared. And now in 2020, this is a very, we can say, a very doubtful situation, understatement, if we say that wars and pestilence are related. There is a reference to biological warfare that China might have started, and the probe which United States of America had started. Suffering is entirely randomly distributed. There is no difference made by COVID-19 in the riches and the rags. Anybody can get affected. It's neither God's punishment, as the Holy Father mentions it in the novel. The Dr. Bernard Dreux, he reminds us of the thousands of doctors who have been working very hard during this outbreak. The people of Oran initially feel that their suffering is unique and it's not a common suffering, but eventually they realize that everyone who is affected goes through the equal pain. Friends, all of us today are going through the similar situation. Existence precedes the essence. Before our uniqueness, we strive for the existence. And at the same time, there is a kind of absurdity in it. According to the Camus, the world or the human being is not in itself absurd. The concept only emerges when they are juxtaposed, when there is a combination of how we are going to tackle the various issues related to our existence. Where there are issues of compatibility between human beings and the world they inhabit. Similarly, bad things do not happen to the good people. There is no good or no bad. It can happen to anybody. And there is no concept of heroism explained or portrayed in the plague. Dr. Rukes is an atheist. He works and he does his duty to the fullest, thinking that there is a decency in that. We have to choose to fight with the suffering and the death here. There are various types of characters here. There is a vacationer Taru, or there is a Raymond Rambert, who is a journalist who works very hard and later on joins the volunteers group to help the Dr. Rukes to wipe out the plague in the town.
Ma'am, 2 more minutes.
Yes. The idea of freedom is also a very peculiarly portrayed in the novel, which we can relate to. People of Iran were quarantined and there were limitations on their freedom. They were not free even before the outbreak, and the same thing happens after that. They realized that they are alive only after they were quarantined. My friends, unfortunately, similar things have happened with us too. All human beings are subject to decay, and when the fate calls, monarchs must obey, as aptly John Dryden had said. While concluding my presentation, I would like to say that we should remember that people are capable of, as Dr. Rukes says, people are capable of giving meanings to their lives. Do not cease being alive when you are still alive. We have to fight this death and suffering as people of Iran, they fought. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really had to curtail down this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for this lively presentation. Now I would request Mr. Chintan Bhatt to start your presentation. After this, Ms. Ekta Laddha, please be ready with your presentation. Thank you. Chintan sir, you can start your presentation.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My topic is a hazardous catastrophe on human race, represented in the book The Great Influenza, the epic story of the deadliest plague in history. The Great Influenza, the epic story of the deadliest plague in history, offers verification of such lethal circumstances that humankind has perceived and experienced in 1918, caused by the flu epidemic universally. The human behavior in the society has amalgamated in the literature and provides an actual reflection of contemporary time. In the present time,
Sir, sorry
yes,
for interruption, but we are
yes.
not able to see your presentation. Are you going to make a presentation?
No, actually, I don't have my PPT.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Continue.
Yeah. In the
Yeah,
present
okay,
time,
then stop presenting. Yeah,
okay,
on your mobile phone, stop presenting. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. Okay, now you can start. Yeah, please start.
Okay. In the present time, an occurrence of COVID-19 in China at the end of 2019 instigated an outsized eruption worldwide. This paper will examine the resemblance of such state of affairs and human condition irrespective of time. An epidemic is such a subject that has been repetitively used in various literary works within the different time frames. Such literature has a dynamic role to play in generating our reactions to COVID-19 pandemic too. Many prominent authors have contributed to portray the narration of such perilous condition that humankind have faced. We can observe the development of such theme of epidemic and pandemic, the poisonous enemy of humans, have amalgamated in the literature from ancient time itself. Apart from John M. Barrie's present work, the great Influenza, the epic story of the deadliest plague in history, Boccaccio have presented a magnificent work entitled The Decameron. Albert Camus' The Plague, The Coming Plague, Newly Emerging Disease in a World Out of Balance by Laurie Garrett, The Ghost Map Story of London's Most Terrifying Epidemic and How It Changed the Modern World by Stephen Johnson, Networked Disease, Emerging Infection in the Global City by Harris Ali and Roger Kale, and Emerging Epidemics, The Menace of New Infection by Madeline Drexler are few of the famous books to consider here. Such literary works are admired by huge audience because of its authenticity of plots, themes, and narration. The various group of societies, especially association of medical fields, doctors, researchers, and medical learners are very much interested reading such books and gaining various knowledge as well. We can recollect that in the preceding time, human race have faced so many fatal disease and epidemics. If we observe from Antonine Plague in 165 AD, the bubonic plague, Spanish influenza, Asian influenza, and the present time we are fighting with an outburst of COVID-19 pandemic. In various literary works, we can find many brilliant things and elements such as actual and imaginary descriptions, linkages with history, representations of contemporary time, suggestions for society, noble ideas, creativity, and many more things that reader really enjoys as well as no miscellaneous things from it. Diverse books have written on the epidemics and pandemics, and the great influenza, the epic story of the deadliest plague in the history is wonderful book among many of them, written by John M. Barrie. This book is nicely comprehended, investigated, and written in magnificent manner. This work narrates that what are the conditions human and society observe and practice due to dangerous flu pandemic in 1918. This excessive pandemic instigated from 1918 to 1920. It was spread globally and assessed nearly 100 million loss of life. In the US, this uncommon virus destroyed a life of approximately 6,75,000 people. This book also provides a description of historical, societal, political scenario at that time. Moreover, John Barrie portrays a background of various things such as science, especially in microbiology, and improvement in the fields of medication, governments, as well as a description of an actual picture of the period of pre-World War One. The condition of people became very ruthless by this fatal disease. In order to stop developing an infection from one person to another person, the notion of self-distancing and quarantine applied at that time also. This transient quarantine situation made an effective alteration in such hazardous situation. Meanwhile, Austria also declared lockdown in its various ports and became isolated island. Governments of various countries tried everything to guard the population. We can relate this to present time and current situation caused by coronavirus to the deadly disease of 1918. This virus had a very destroying impact even in the developed countries. They did not have any provisions, effective vaccinations or medications. At that time, World Health Organization had done wonderful job and presented a remarkable leadership. The various reality of this unexpected happening are well portrayed in detail with the facts in this book. The readers can have an actual picture with the help of explanation and exploration of such deadly disease of that time. In this book, the social, the political condition, and its direct reflection on an individual's life also portrayed. An eruption of this fatal virus is in Philadelphia also very dreadful Due to this infection, approx 4,500 people lost their life in just a single week. This book is historical investigation and written in fascinating manner that it holds readers' attention. Numerous literary works have written encompassing theme of epidemic and pandemics that human race have encountered. It described the human condition and involvement in such helplessness, terror, awfulness, and hopelessness. Such narration in the literature showcases the historical aspect and also provide an encouragement that with the time and joint efforts, this tough time will also pass and new hope of ray will arrive for the betterment of human life. It's not just an investigation of the causes for the deadly disease,
Sir, you have two
effects of
more.
society, economy. Okay. It also generates the notion that this world is not only ours. It is quite obvious that human can learn many things from the past. In the present era, humans have established so many things for the betterment of human race, such as advancement in science and technologies, internet, medical tools, theories and facilities, high education, and many other things that brought a huge social transformation. But still human race is helpless in front of nature. In the history, the understandings, persistent efforts, reactions, and special actions of human at such tough time of epidemics and pandemics are reflected in such related literature. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to request Ekta ma'am to start her presentation. After this, I would like to request Jagdish Anerao sir to be ready with your presentation. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Hello.
Yes,
Acha, is it a joint paper, Ekta?
Yes, sir.
Acha, with Dr. PULIN Bhatt?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is he also going to present another paper? Or this is
No,
the
sir.
joint presentation?
Sir, he is present, but I am presenting the paper.
Okay, can we get Dr. PULIN Bhatt on the screen? Are you there, Dr. PULIN Bhatt?
Yes, sir, I am there.
Can come on, you can put, yeah, sir.
I am there,
Yeah,
sir.
good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, good evening. How are you, sir?
Yeah, you're audible. So this is a joint paper. No?
Yeah, sure, sure.
This is
Ekta
it.
will be reading the paper. I'll remain as witness.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yeah.
Is my paper visible?
Yes.
You have to tilt your mobile, rotate your mobile phone. Now it will be visible. Yeah. Just a minute. It's not okay. Next slide, if it can be clear. Yeah. Try to no. Rotation mode. Can you bring it on? Play the presentation and bring on rotation mode. Your mobile phone, you have to rotate.
Is it visible, sir?
No, it is still not on a rotation. Rotate your phone so the screen can be full. Otherwise, the fonts are not readable.
okay.
Is it now visible?
Okay. Yeah, it is now. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay, sir. The topic of my presentation is The Earth Abides as a Tale of Epidemic. Myself, Ekta Laddha, from Department of English, Gujarat University. What is an epidemic? The novel begins with the headlines of a newspaper which says, if a killing type of virus strain should suddenly arise by mutation, it could, because of the rapid transportation in which we indulge nowadays, be carried to the far corners of the earth and cause the deaths of millions of people. It means to say that a disease has occurred and it has spread quickly. It is contagious, communicable. There is no escape from it and there are no medicines. It has reduced mass population and it has naturally occurring due to climatic changes. Now, as the protagonist witnesses all these, what he witnesses is the consequences of epidemic. Because the protagonist, Isherwood Williams, was living in the mountain due to the snake bite of a rattlesnake. And after coming back to the society, he found the extinction of species. He found the peopleless place, and to his dismay, he was unable to realize whether he should shed any tears over civilization and death of men, or discover whether civilization was destroyed or man was dead. Then there is a change of perception towards life. In this calamity, the survivor was a drunkard, which made Ish to question God as to why was he spared when so many better men taken. Then there is alienation. Because there are no people, it has led to his hopelessness, to which he says, we are just like gas molecules in a near vacuum circulating around, one unable to make contact with the other. Apart from that, there is emotional trauma as well, because he thinks, what will happen to the world without men? Then there is the distinction between the needs and breeds. Now, he is on a venture, his journey acquires something due to which his accumulation of food materials, car, sleeping bag, annex, cigarettes, etc. are there for the preparation of his journey. In this situation, the survival of the fittest is there or not. The whole disaster had been the work of an angry god, who had now wiped out his people by pestilence as once before by flood, leaving Ish. So it might be said that he is fit. Then there is economic, cultural, religious disintegration, which he faces. After that, the task that lies in front of him is how can adversity be transformed into opportunity. For that, he needs to be optimistic. He building ray of hope and positivity. He says, the lights are going out, the lights are going out. How often in many centuries has those been words said? As a matter of fact, sometimes in panic, but now it is as a symbol. How much light had meant in all the story of men, light of the word, light of life, light of knowledge. That means he is filled with enthusiasm that he is going to march on a new journey. For that, he has to reconstruct the society. And after his long travel, his journey ends when Ish met Emma and they planned to repopulate. Among himself, he wants to instill the confidence among others as well, because the surviving people he found were generally singles, occasionally couples, and people who were physically alive, but more and more he realized that they walked about in a kind of emotional death. Then moreover, there is the critical evaluation of danger, because after all this, what he thought was, what am I afraid of? Nothing more than my death can happen. So if he analyzes danger from this point of view, then he can be afraid of nothing. It teaches him to be self-dependence as well, because now after repopulating, the task that lies ahead in the head of him is to impart education to the society. For that, he wants to restructure the society, because everything has to be started from the grassroots level, from the zero to other numbers. So he wanted to make world a better place to live. For that, he wanted the betterment of society, but the transition that has taken place over the years is the freshness of air, naivety of people, and proximity with nature. He needs to impart knowledge to people. For that, he has opened the school where he used to teach children. Another thing that he wants to restructure is that social connection with others. So the important thing was the making of contact with two other communities. That is, if you could call it contact, when the other communities were fighting off all advances from strangers. Was that from mere blind prejudice, or was it from some deep instinct of self-preservation? After all this, what came to him is the philosophical thinking that man is a mortal animal. He has to die one day or the other. Then God is the maker of our fate. He is the one who makes us puppet in his hand. Then he analyzed that population is directly proportional to mortality rate. In comparison with small number of the tribe, 5 deaths per more than 100,000 would have been in a city of million people. The more the population, more the loss. The less the population, less the loss. Then it
You
occurs,
have 2 more minutes.
okay ma'am. Then there is the transitoriness of life. Then there is that cosmic power reigns supreme. The sun and the moon and the stars, they remain.
He was just 14 years, and how the epidemic has helped him to create his work and creativity. What happened was that, and interestingly, all my cases have same time frame, that is 1897, and the epidemic is same, that is plague. Many of us know that India was in the grip of plague epidemic post 1895, maybe for 4 to 5 years. And interestingly, all the works mentioned by earlier writers, and I also mentioned them in my paper, the plague is common epidemic, and I think that the plague is frequent visitor to most European countries. And Lokmanya Tilak once also mentioned about the plague and blamed the British that they have brought in plague in our country. But that is not my area of paper. I would like to talk again to that person who later on became the president of Marathi Vangmay Parishad, and how plague played vital role in his case. When he was 14 and Maharashtra was in the grip of plague, so he was once praying to the God. And what happened was, to quote William Wordsworth, a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. What happened was that he was praying to the God. It was for 2 reasons. Actually, he also lost his some loved ones because of the plague, and there were hundreds of people who lost their lives because of plague. So that was one reason. But the other more important reason was that 3 of his countrymen were hanged by the British, and he was shocked by that also. The cause of the hanging of the 3 brothers, they are known as Chafekar brothers, was that they assassinated one British officer, Mr. Walter Rand. Now what happened was, to curb epidemic of plague in Maharashtra and more particularly in Pune and other nearby region, the governor of Mumbai province appointed him, and there was a committee headed by him. What he did was, instead of placing the services of doctor in Pune, he deployed the army, and he gave the free rein to the army, which was comprising of around now 900 people. So they looted the people, they destroyed the hospitals, they also in a way raped the ladies in the open roads and streets. So people were anguished, and they tried to raise voice against them, against the cruelty of Mr. Rand. What happened was, instead of curbing the epidemic, he wrote to the governor that everything is fine, everything is under control. So such was his indifferent attitude to the epidemic and curbing and controlling it. So the Chafekar brothers assassinated him, and he was there. All the 3 brothers were within a couple of months were hanged in 1897. Now what happens was, he was the boy who later became the president of Marathi Sahitya Parishad. he started praying to God that see the epidemic is there and now we must be liberated from this cruel colonial rulers, that is British. And all of a sudden some lines came out spontaneously from his mouth, which he later on revised, and these are the most often quoted lines in Marathi literature. They are तुझसाठी मरण ते जनन
You have 2 more minutes.
वीण Jananate Marana. I think it is self-explanatory. It means that if I can not die for you, then there is no point in my life, in my birth. It is meaningless. So, if my life is dedicated to you, it is the meaning of total real meaning of my life. And then he wrote number of drama, number of poetry, lyrics, and all sorts of forms of literature. But the thing now I'm talking about the person who was so prolific writer, is most discussed, most read, and most talked about man of letters in Marathi literature. But the starting point of his creativity was epidemic of plague, and this man was no other than Swatantravir Savarkarji, who was imprisoned in the Andamans and Nicobar. Interesting aspect of his creativity is that his writings were so much, having impact on the society, Indian society especially, that one of the work he wrote was banned even before its publication, and this is the first and last work in literature which was banned even before its publication. That was his history of the first war of independence, 1857. So here I find that the most prolific man of letters has a starting point of his creativity in epidemic of 1897. Next, I am talking about one biography written in Marathi.
You have 1 more minute.
Naha Palkar. So he is writing about a great freedom fighter. When he was a boy of just 8 years, again the same time frame, that is 1897, and same plague. So the boy was in Nagpur. He lost his parents, both father and mother, because of plague. The reason of the death of his father was that he went to serve the people who were caught in the grip of epidemic of plague. Now what happens is, one day he also was infected by plague, and when he returns, his wife, that is the mother of our hero, was treating the husband, and she was also infected. And the next day, both father and mother, that is the husband and wife, they died. And the boy found that there is no one to help our society. The government is indifferent. So there should be some force which can help the society during such calamity. And later on, he also did his graduation in medicine, but instead of ailing the disease of man, he tried to kill the disease of the country. And in 1925, Mr. Palkar writes that he founded Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, popularly known as RSS. And Palkar writes that in his biography that this impact of plague played a very vital role in the foundation of this organization. And friends, we are aware that in every corner of the world, the volunteers of RSS are there to serve the society. But my point here is, epidemic of plague was instrumental in the creation of this voluntary organization. One more point again, how the epidemic has helped mankind. That is the positive side of the epidemic. Again, the same time frame, 1897, same epidemic plague. Again, same month, almost May, June, when Swami Vivekananda returned from the West, and he has conquered the West by spirituality. He returns and he landed first in Colombo, then returned to Chennai. And after traveling the whole country, he returns to Calcutta, his hometown. What happens was, he observed that the country is in the grip of epidemic of plague, and there is no formal organization to help. So within a couple of months of his return to Calcutta, he founded, exactly in May 1897, he founded Brahmbhatt Krishna Mission, which is there to serve the society. In fact, Had he not traveled the country, had he not come across the epidemic and the situation and horrors of the epidemic, I don't think that he might have started or founded the Vivekananda Mission so early. So all these cases, they represent the case, and I have looked at the literature with a different angle. Instead of presenting all the negative sides, I have tried to ascertain how there can be some positive creation because of academic, and all these three cases are there. They show that there can be also some positive. We can take this opportunity for the positive creation. I may conclude with the remark and citing again Homer, who has glorified plague. Now, I don't think that there is much change in the mindset of generally evil mind. What happened recently in our country? There was a kind of enemy of mankind who glorified epidemic of corona. It is pandemic, of course, and he said, let us embrace corona and let us die in a mosque because it is given by God. This is the most pathetic side of mankind, and it must not be a kind of attitude, human attitude. I may conclude with the remark that let us move towards the positivity and take this opportunity which is there prevailing in our country, the pandemic situation, and try to bring out some positivity. It may be creative in any manner. It may be a creative in creation in literature or otherwise. Thank you. Andile Bhai, so nice of you. Thank you for giving me opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Now
Yes, thank you, Jagdish Anerao, sir. And a reminder to
Yes, sir.
everybody to stick to time so we can end our session in due time. Everybody just follow the instructions of the time frame there. It was good presentation, Jagdish Bhai. Thank you.
Now I would request Rashmi Varma to start her presentation, and after this, Ms. Sheetal Rawat, please be ready with your presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. The title of my paper is Moral Preparedness, a reading of Rajinder Singh Bedi's Plague and Quarantine. Let me quote a sentence by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "Our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be." As it is, life is a difficult journey. And when at some point of time we find ourselves staring at something like an epidemic or a pandemic, all our mental and spiritual resources at being a human being is put to test. It can become such a time of crisis that we are forced to come out with our real inner reality. That reality can be the best in us or the worst in us. Artists, especially the literary artists, with their sensitive and perceptive understanding, give expression to both the acute circumstances and the unpredictable human reactions to them. Epidemics and pandemics can be such acute circumstances. In Indian literature, many writers have written about the effect of epidemics on people and society at large. However, the number is not as many as we would have wished for. Rajendra Singh Bedi, one of the eminent Urdu writers, penned a story titled Plague and Quarantine. The story presents the grim reality of an epidemic-ridden town from the point of view of a doctor and a sanitary worker working at a quarantine center. This paper is a reading of the story showing how the protagonists rise above fear, even apathy, and display a heroic moral preparedness in fulfilling their duty. The story is narrated by Dr. Bakshi, who is in charge of supervising a quarantine center to prevent the spread of plague in the town. Quarantine, we know now, is a place where the infected person is kept in isolation from others so that the disease is not transmitted further. We also know that the intensity of epidemic, along with fear and panic, creates scarcity of all kinds of resources, especially human power required to look after the patients and control the spread. Bedi's story is so realistic that some of the descriptions of the streets of the infected town and the people sound almost like a media reportage of our own COVID-19 affected world. The protagonist of the story is Babu, a converted Christian Dalit, a sanitary worker. His work is to sweep clean the streets of his locality. But Babu, we are told, takes his work not only as a job but as a service to humanity. He wakes up at 3 a.m. in morning, drinks some liquor, and sprays lime powder, chunna, on the streets. To our shock, we read that cleaning the streets also meant removing the dead bodies of them. People, the doctor narrates, did not reveal their infection to others because they were frightened of being taken to quarantine. By the way, recently, Dr. Guleria, director of All India Institute of Medical Science, Delhi, had visited my city, Ahmedabad, and observed that the reason behind spiraling deaths in the city is that people shy away from being tested for COVID-19 under the fear that they will be quarantined in hospitals, where the infected are isolated from their friends and families. After all, fear of being alone in illness and dying alone could be the worst of nightmares. In the story, the doctor observes that even the medical staff maintained a distance from the infected. He himself is terrified of going to the center and shirks his duty. Bhagu is the only one who shows sympathy and compassion for them. He even hugs the patients and tries to console them as they breathe their last in his arms. His genuine feelings for fellow human beings awakens a sense of moral responsibility in the doctor, who decides to treat the patients as people rather than just cases to be solved. He had been more interested in the success ratio figure increasing on his office chart. However, he confuses that he could not match the empathy shown by Babu. The situation was so grim that more people died of the fear of quarantine than of the disease itself. The height of Babu's commitment to the patients is such that he even neglects his ailing wife and child, and after her death, soon reaches hospital to be with the doctor. His silent dedication to work makes the doctor rethink the ethics of his profession. Babu makes him realize that medical profession cannot be like other fixed working hours job. Rather, it's a commitment to service to humankind. With the help of Babu, the doctor decides to visit the slums and poor areas of the town after working hours, leading his medical term to free the town from the deadly epidemic. Once, when life returns to normalcy, the doctor is promoted and felicitated with praise and cash rewards. People look up to him with respect and honor as he passes through the streets. At the end of the day, when he returns home, basking in the glory of appreciation, he finds Bhagu silently waiting to congratulate him. Bhagu did not get any recognition for his work, and the doctor could see the futility of his own felicitations. The story can be seen as a plea to appreciate and show gratitude for the
Ma'am, you
thankful
have 2 more minutes.
of the sanitary workers. Uh, in the story, it is obvious that it is Bhagu and his innate human quality that motivates Dr. Bakshi to shake off his fear and realize his moral responsibility towards people. Bedi is known for weaving his stories always around ordinary everyday people. His story Quarantine too shows how in times of crisis like epidemics, even ordinary people can rise to the occasion and give their best to their work. The characters teach us when there is a shortage of resources and facilities, love, care, and sympathy for people can be more helpful. The story makes us realize in the times of COVID and quarantine, the world surely needs more and more healthcare facilities. But most of all, we need a moral preparedness to stand up and reach out the poor and the helpless. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your lively presentation.
Thank you.
Now I would request Ms. Sheetal Rawat to begin your presentation. After this, Zafarkhan Pathan. Sir, please be ready with your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just sharing a PowerPoint presentation. Just a minute.
Yes.
Good evening to all, and it's my pleasure today to have this opportunity to present a paper. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Hello.
You are audible.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait a minute, ma'am. Yes. Hello. Is my presentation on screen, ma'am?
Yes. Please start the slideshow.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So good evening to all, and it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to present a paper in this national webinar, Literature and Epidemics. I myself is a Dr. Sheetal Rawat, an assistant professor in Faculty of Education, Gujarat Vidyapeeth. And my today's topic for the paper presentation is a literary take in the time of epidemics. As we all know, that the global challenge the whole world has been facing is, and the biggest threat to human race is the contagious epidemic that is COVID-19 that has killed millions of people. And this virus is shrewd in its camouflage and unabashed in its cruelty. The biggest challenge, or I think the challenge each individual face nowadays, as we all are quarantined in our house for the survival of our own lives, that is the aloneness. It seems to be the greatest byproduct of this invisible animal, for whether enemy, for whether or not a person have been infected, the condition is one of separation, a self-imposed isolation. Be it out of fear or guilt, you are expected to stop your life in its tracks and confine yourself willingly and against all natural instincts to the walls that house you. History, as we know, witnessed many serious epidemics such as plague, Spanish flu, cholera, etc. We know that Spanish flu, if our national father, Gandhi, would have not been cured from this Spanish flu, the history of our freedom struggle might have been different. The world teeters in collective anxiety in the midst of the pandemic, and among all, a novel and lethal plague spreads its tentacles around the world. It ravages human populations and simultaneously undermines their interconnected economic and political systems. COVID-19 also in the same way resembles to this global plague that is being narrated in Mary Shelley's The Last Man. That is also in my paper. I'm going to talk about this particular resemblance. The Last Man, Mary Shelley's futuristic novel, predicted the political causes and collective solution for global plague. Shelley saw that the disaster of a pandemic would be driven by politics that would be deeply personal yet international in scope, as we all know that it is being presumed that it is an international conspiracy and man-made virus, hence it is not natural, that definitely is international in scope. And with scientists' predictions of entering the age of pandemic in The Last Man as the first major post-apocalyptic novel, Shelley gave her readers an existential mindset for collectively dealing with the threat of a global man-made disaster. The novel is set in the year 2100, and its driving conflict, as it is with coronavirus, is a highly contagious disease. What is the epidemic feel like coronavirus? Even novels plague spreads by a combination of airborne particles and contact with carriers. It has been a very influential, the novel has been a very influential to the radical changes brought about by epidemics, isolation of people, and increased loss of lives of number of people all across the globe. And what is the hope for the existence? As we know in the novel, it is shown that the protagonist, Lionel Varney, serves as trusted advisor to monarchy. But in the final combat, he remained the sole survivor, left alone in Rome to contemplate the future. In the sublime vintage, Varney realizes that even if he is last man on earth, he must live as though he is not. He must sustain humanity by Antigone, his profound sense of interconnectedness of his fate with other forms of life. Either human or not, it may be anything, but he has to be hopeful. And it was the novel was a fine attempt to reconcile uh, herself to the tragedies of life without losing hope in humanity itself. It's a deadly disease across continents, both in the novel and as it is the reality with all of us nowadays. And Shelley located human of a fictional plague in a centuries-long war between Greece and Turkey. As with this coronavirus outbreak, travelers in The Last Man also dispersed the deadly disease across continents, infecting their own families and communities. And it also proved to be a work of political science fiction, basically originates in author's experience of devastating personal loss. The unexpectedly hopeful ending of The Last Man suggests that all disasters, however threatening to particular individuals or countries, are ultimately a responsibility to the whole, to the world as a whole. The message we may get from The Last Man that Shelley wants to convey with this scientific fiction is that wise beyond her years, Shelley reminds us through the heroic voice of Varney that we should always act upon hope for retaining what makes us loving human and connected to others, even in the facet of a total catastrophe. Among our fears and worries about survival of our loved ones, like author and her avatar, we should summon the strength to look beyond that fear with an attitude of hope and collective problem solving. Only then might we humanly work together to fight the spread of COVID-19 instead of contributing to yet another international epidemiological disasters. And what is the learning, the biggest learning? Either it's a global plague many years back, either any kind of epidemics, or our present COVID-19, that is the vivid proven lifestyle. Simple living and high thinking, definitely we just banished ourselves. We have to banish ourselves from the long outgoing tours and going to mall and doing window shopping and just going to into the groups for enjoyment and fun. Definitely there must be different things of then social distance. As our country's culture speaks of social gatherings a lot, that creates a lot of harmony among ourselves, but yet Corona just learns us to keep a safe social distance, to just improvise our better life. We must have to be positive thinker. Positive thinking gives a great healing of our body as well as mind, and then only with this fears and worries we can survive. Safe precautions for health also are the precautions are the takens that we have to be careful about. Among our fears and worries of about survival of our loved ones, like author and he, we should summon the strength that took beyond the fear with all attitude of whole and collective problems. That's all. And thank you very much for listening to me. Hello? Hello? Okay.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir. That's all about my presentation. And with the hope of surviving in any kind of disastrous epidemics, this is the hope and this is the positive thinking of our human psyche and literature that bespeaks and ignites our mind with this positivity that we can survive by all means. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, who is the next presenter?
Sir, Zafarkhan Pathan.
Yeah.
After that, Miss Abhipsa Pandya, please be ready with your presentation.
Yes, Milind Pathade. You can put your camera. Okay, fine. Yeah, you can put off your camera. Yeah, if you are walking or doing something else. Even this MPSC, UPSC. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. If any other activities you are doing, it is better you put your camera off, so that in the live recording on Facebook, YouTube, video footages, your that video is not recorded. Yeah, Milind. Milind. Yeah. It is
Zafarkhan
better
sir,
to
are you
put off.
present?
Yes. Who is the next one?
Zafarkhan
Okay.
Pathan.
Is it there?
Uh, he's
Zafarkhan
not
Pathan.
responding, sir. Then we
Zafarkhan
can.
Pathan. Are you there? Okay, then I think Abhipsa Pandya is ready.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please, Abhipsa. Yeah.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Are you making a presentation or oral reading?
No, orally I'm going.
Okay, please start. Yeah.
Thank you. So, good evening all. The title of my paper is Impact of Epidemics on Humans Reflected in Rabindranath Tagore's narrative poem, Kshetra, An Old Man Servant of Mine. The outbreak of COVID-19 has suddenly forced people all around the world to imagine about the epidemics like plague, smallpox, cholera, influenza flared up in the ancient times, and how people would have survived or what their mental state would be during such critical time. Humans are the only one species on the earth who possess articulate language and innate intellect. But one foremost essence which being humans must have is sensibility. Lack of sensibility during epidemics turn humans helpless. Here it means one's affections towards the other. Emphasis is on the other. And when it comes to the matter of poor, low wagers, all in all of needy people, it means a lot. From times, havoc caused by epidemics has touched many authors to the core, one or the other way. The impact was serious upon them. Epidemics bring number of deaths, destroy families, and ruin social life with its arrival. Turbulence of such diseases have forced many literary minds burst out the pain and distress hovering around humans to fight against such unwelcomed guests. Rabindranath Tagore is one such incomparable author who has come out with vulnerable stories of struggle, anguish, and agony, which human mind bears with the burden of pain during hard times. One of his best-loved poems, Kshetra, An Old Man Servant of Mine, a translated poem of Rabindranath Tagore, originally written in Bengali under the title Puratan Bhritya. The poem is translated in English by Monish R. Chatterjee in 2019. The present poem, The Old Servant, reveals how an epidemic plays a crucial role as a leveler between the classes. And yet, it is viewed that poor are marginalized, but they are not given worth credit of what they deserve. Rabindranath Tagore has penned many such works where he has talked about the people who are vulnerable and overlooked. The poem reflects the painful story of the life of Kshetra, an old servant. He dies in taking care of his master, and after his death, he was valued by his master, who is the narrator of this poem. The narrator is Bengali Zamindar, who seems to be Tagore himself. Kshetra was disliked by all in house as he was believed to be good for nothing. They wanted to get rid of him, but it was not possible as he was the oldest servant of the house. The time in which the original poem was written, an epidemic called smallpox spread all over the country. The disease originated in ancient times and killed over 300 million people in 20th century. The havoc of smallpox is found in Ahmed Ali's novel Twilight in Delhi. Here he says, they did not bother to see that the grave was digged properly or deep enough or not. They had so many more to dig. They means grave diggers. Such was the dark form of epidemic. Narrator Zamindar had to take Sheta forcefully with him to the holy journey to Vrindavan. Here he caught up with smallpox. Gradually, his all other pilgrim companions deserted him. The plight of human restlessness is symbolic here. Tagore has faced 3 dangerous epidemics during his lifetime. When he was adolescent, plague and cholera outbroke in the country, and in 1904, smallpox caused the havoc. A helpless master who became forlorn in a far land calls out his servant in unbearable pain. Keshta, please come to me. Realizing his duty towards his master, Keshta continuously stayed with him, measured his temperature, and alas, himself succumbs to smallpox. And the foolish old servant succeeded in saving his owner's life at the cost of his own life. Sheta's death symbolizes the plight of helpless migrants in India with the outbreak of COVID-19. Narrator's description of Sheta at the end of his life is heartbreaking. Through days and nights, vigilant my old manservant by my bed, the narrator says, pours water in my mouth, asks if I felt better, feels my temper for fever. And then, when he himself succumbs to death, my life-giver appropriated my fatal disease as each day his prospects grew dim. Losing consciousness, he lay there for a day or two until no pulse in him was left. He was disliked, but his life proved to be a blessing for his master. His master, who too was harsh towards him, but became mournful with his death at the end. Sheta proved himself to be faithful, but the question remains the same. Would his death change anything? Would his death change anything? Would it change the mindsets of the people of upper strata or middle class? What has been done for their safety? Are they always to be left helpless? The tradition goes on from times immemorial till the date. Thus, the present poem penned by Rabindranath Tagore is relevant, asking questions and exposing distress with the critical time of COVID-19 today. Here, it is questioned by the author as where is Hari? Hari means God. Meaning, where is God? As the dreadful smallpox wins over the supernatural power. Today also temples are closed. Where believed they go and pray and go and will have mercy on them. But Sheta, of course, for his master, is viewed in the form of God and fades in fatal death performing his duty. Thus, here, concluding the article by stating, though literature practically doesn't provide any way out of the grab of epidemics, it looks on an individual with empathy and compassion. It is thus believed that event which in reality gives pain, it provides relief in literature. Thank you. I would like to thank Dilip sir to give me such opportunity, and congratulations for a lovely organization, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Zafarkhan sir, are you ready now?
Okay, let us move to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So now I would like to invite Miss Rucha Brahmbhatt for her presentation. And after this, we have the last presentation of Sonaji Rajput, sir. Please be ready after this.
Am I audible?
Yes, yeah, you are audible. Yes.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this chance. I'm just trying to share my screen so that I can show you my presentation. I think there is some problem.
Also check the network strength. I think there is a network error also. Low network.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been since morning. So, is it? I mean, I can't show my presentation right now. I can't share it.
Are you on laptop?
Yes, sir.
So you just have to present now on the right hand side corner bottom. You will find.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. And I'm trying to get to the entire screen, but it's not.
Entire screen, yes.
But it's not. Somehow it's not taking up. Anyway, I'll begin. Okay. I think now I can show. Is visible now?
I think it will take time because you are having on a slower network connection.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
picture is still, it is not moving. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Now.
Okay. Just.
No. But now Zafarkhan Pathan has started presenting. Yeah. Zafarkhan. Afterwards, you do. Right now, Rucha Brahmbhatt madam is presenting. So you stop presenting right now. Zafarkhan Pathan. You start, Rucha madam, and you also present the screen. Yeah. Rucha madam, you take control of presenting the screen.
I'm sharing the screen.
Okay, if it is not working, then orally present. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So my presentation is about extinction and emergence of Native Americans, and healing ways that they use through literature. I think it's anyways. So the presentation is about how the Native Americans suffered epidemics due to germ warfare, as mentioned by J. Diamond in his book Germs, Guns, Germs and Stills. So they suffered the epidemics by the colonizers or unknowingly due to their contacts with immigrants, especially the European settlers. In this presentation, I'll be talking about how the Native Americans they survived. Many tribes face threats of extinction, but those who survived, they have preserved a healing way to fight against the unknown. And their surviving stories are healing stories, and there are healers who tell the stories. So natives have a unique bond with the words and techniques, and by natives I mean those tribes of North America that include Navajo, Cherokee, Apache, Havasupai, etc. And the final conclusion of my presentation is that these stories, they create a kind of placebo effect, something that in the morning Vaidehi ma'am talked about. It creates a placebo effect from the faith that is created by the curative power of literature, and which I termed as if I could show you the slide, I would like to say that I have put the alter into brackets. It's alternative therapy for them. Um, Coming to the main presentation, that these tribes, like all the aboriginals, they use oral literature, which is known as orature. Many of their stories have been preserved in oral form. Uh, but these stories are less entertaining and more informative. Because for the civilized, that is for the mainstream, talking about epidemics is occasional. And for indigenous people, it is traditional because it is stories. For them, survival is crucial because for people, those who are known as others, for them, passing on wisdom through stories is a strategy. And so their stories include everything like the stories of epidemics, disease, history, myths, legends, etc. These For Native Americans, the epidemics swept through populations. That was around. It started around 16th century, and it is known as the virgin soil epidemics because they had no prior exposure to a particular infectious disease and consequently no immunity to it. So the European settlers brought diseases like smallpox, bubonic plague, chickenpox, cholera, the common cold, diphtheria, etc. But these natives had a strong tradition of medicines and healing ways. They knew that by mixing herbs, roots, and other natural plants, they could survive and they could heal the various medical problems. But they also knew that only remedies were not the part of healing process. So in their stories, we know the stories from medicine men or women, those are the common figures in the literature. And the major difference between Native American healing and conventional medicine is the emotional well-being that they take care of in the healing process, and the belief that all things in nature are interconnected. So instead of isolating the deceased person, the community helps an ill person in ceremonies by praying, by chanting, and by telling story, along with the herbal remedies, of course. So it is a kind of community or collective healing through literature. And therefore, the unity of the whole is preserved and reflected in language, literature, and thought. And when the literature takes on more meaning when considered in terms of some relevant whole. So this alternative therapy that I call is teleological because they believe listening to the story even after the disease is over. They believe that a disease is not an enemy. It comes with a lesson. It comes with a message. Um, there is a Navajo chant. It is called a Navajo night chant. Navajo is a community in Arizona that is tribal community, and they have a healing way where they chant on the 9th day to the patient that together they sing that happily I recover, happily my interior becomes cool, happily I go forth, my interior is feeling cool, may I walk. No longer sore may I walk. May it be beautiful before me. May it be beautiful all around me. In beauty, it is finished. So, such type of chants, and there are poems. There is a poem titled Hope, where the medicine man is called the Hope. He was a wise old man who lived in the mountains. He diagnosed strange illnesses caused by the spirits. So I'm not reading out the entire poem. And there is another poem which is called Warrior. You know, these days we also call the doctors warriors. In native tradition, a medicine man is also known as a warrior in literature. So it's a strong tradition of healing. There are also many healing poems by Apache Indians. Apart from poems, there are legends. Say, for example, there is a legend of a cedar tree. Cedar tree is known to be having medicinal property. And while giving an extract from a cedar tree to a patient, the healer, um, the medicine man or a woman, he or she tells a story
Ma'am,
to
you
the
have
man.
2 more minutes.
Okay, so this sedentary story is like how that sedentary once upon a time was a nobleman, and he was turned into a tree because the creator wanted to give him a long life to serve humankind. This kind of story behind medicine that creates a placebo effect. Um, so, and there are writers like Joy Harao. She is a poet laureate of United States, and she says that these are the generation old stories told in a spiral way. They are the healing stories for us. And if anybody would like to read the modern stories, Leslie Marmon Silko's Storyteller and Ceremony, they are based on how literature is therapeutic. And I would like to quote from Leslie Marmon Silko. I quote, "I will tell you something about stories. They are not just entertainment. Don't be fooled. They are all we have, you see, all we have to fight off illness and death," unquote. So, in the time of coronavirus coverage by National Geographic on May 12th, 2020, that was 4 days back, they have published an article on traditional indigenous beliefs are a powerful tool for understanding the pandemic. So those who wish to read, they can go online and read this beautiful article on National Geographic, that how literature storytelling serves as therapeutic to these people. And thank you so much. And I'm sorry that I could not show my presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this chance.
Okay, you are welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Pathan is there? Pathan Khan, then we can take his turn. Pathan Khan, are you there? Yeah, okay, he's there. Yes, Zafar Pathan Khan, are you there? Please unmute your mic so we can listen your voice.
Sir, I think there is some network issue. It is showing that he has left the meeting.
Acha, okay, then who is the next one?
Sir, now we have the last presentation by Sonaji Rajput, sir.
Yeah, unmute your mic.
Okay, okay. Is it visible, sir?
Yes, visible. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Have
you
you
very much.
started? Are
Everybody
you
was
from mobile phone or laptop?
on now. Okay.
Your voice is breaking.
Okay, now is it fine?
Okay, now are you from mobile phone? Okay, please start.
Okay. Good evening. Is a case study of also and such Jill. About, I have not done.
do better, I mean, different than them. Okay, so to understand the theme of a plague, what we can understand, uh, we can go with the dialogues, or we can go with the text. What Camus has put his point of view through different characters. So first of all, the theme of the novel deals with the plague. Okay, and that's why around or in the city of Uran, it is situated in the northwest coast of India. Now, outlook, because he was also he has his own memories with this particular city. He has written about these memories in his chronicles. So he writes, this town which has nothing picturesque. Okay, he was thinking that this town is not so good. There is no vegetation, no soil, and in short, it induces sleep. Okay, it doesn't encourage in any way. Whereas in one of the dialogue, the character describes how were the people of Oran. So most of them like money having people, and it has been said that they are especially interested in trade. First of all they say they are engaged in doing business, and then they simply enjoy pleasures. Okay, what they do, they love women, they go to cinema, they do sea bathing, and but they very sensibly keep these activities for Saturday evening and Sunday. Otherwise, they are always running behind money. If we want to talk about the characters of Camus, I mean, he has put heroes are obscurely engaged very often, not in destroying. This is not in the name of no ideology. They fight an omnipresent, invisible, inhuman adversary because they belong to an open human order of existence. See, for example, Dr. Bernard Riggs, the central character, 35-year-old, he doesn't. He has different idealism. He believes that his duty is to serve, and that is what he should do. Raymond Rambert, and he wants to give any but the certificate from the doctor, and later on he started self. The other character is Taro. He is a traveler. He keeps diary. Uh, some of the critics also identify the character of Jean Taro with Camus, because the narrator in this particular book has not been identified till the end. Okay, Father Fenelix, he is the priest. As usual, the religious person. He always tries to impress people by sermons. He thinks that our life is controlled by God. But at the end of the life, his point in some of the sermons and in some of the discussions, his point of view seems to be changed. Joseph Grant, one of the Granger character, according to me, is a 50-year-old civil servant. He is not happy with the life he is having because he wants higher salary. He could not marry the woman he loved. Okay. And he also wanted to have promotion. He was promised to have promotion, but he never got promotion. The character named Cotard, another character, he lives in the same building where Grant lives. He is very mysterious man. Okay, along with this, the other characters are Mr. Othon. Okay, like he is the judge of the city, and he lost his son, his beloved son, in this epidemic. Dr. Castle, the person who gets the solution of epidemic plague, the serum. Dr. Richard, Marcel, Louis, Gonzel, and there are some other characters too. Okay, now see the development of theme. So if we have to see the development of the theme in the context, the death of rats, that is what how they identify the epidemic. So he puts in this way, but in Iran, the extreme climate, the amount of business going on, the insignificance of surrounding, the speed with which night falls, and the quality of pleasure all demand good health. A sick person is very lonely here, just like other cities. Okay, there is no company for the sick person. the rise of plague. Okay, Camus has aptly put in his sentences this particular. They came up from basements and cubby holes, the rats, cellars, drains in long swaying lines. They staggered in light, collapsed and died right next to people. So people and rats both are dying together along with. Okay, so human life has put two down. Effect of epidemic, if we have to see, how was it? More than one person walking at night along the pavement would experience the feeling of elastic bulk of still fresh corpse under the feet. So that was the impact of epidemic. But Father Penelux was having different view. According to him, it was an act of God. Okay, and when somebody asked why people are dying, he said, "Oh, it must be an epidemic." The priest said, and his eyes were smiling behind the glasses. That is how Camus has written. So we can understand how what type of person he was. Now the lockdown situation, everything was closed. Okay, nobody comes, nobody goes. But still, telephones, telegrams under urgency, they were kept. They were allowed to use. The condition of people of Oran during the epidemic was very, they were feeling anxiety. Okay, so Philip Todi, one of the critic, writes about Camus' inner revolt, about the condition. Part of what Camus means by revolt is the desire to recreate the world in accordance with the human ideas of balance, harmony, and form. Okay, so he thinks there are different ideas. Okay, but he thinks that Camus wanted to create his own.
Sir,
world.
you have 2 more minutes.
Okay, 2 more minutes. Thank you, ma'am. Now, quarantine city, Oran city was full with gloominess. Okay, once upon a time it was chattering city. People were talking to each other, but now only silence, dust, sun, and plague. They meet in the same city. There was an interesting discussion between Dr. Riggs and Tarot. Okay, do you believe in God? When Tarot asked him, Dr. Riggs, do you believe in God? Dr. Riggs replied, very genuine reply, no. But what does that mean? I am in darkness, trying to see the light. I stopped a long time ago thinking there was anything unusual in that. Isn't that thing that make you different from Penelux? Okay, so he's not believer, and that is the agnostic approach of Camus has been presented over here. I will skip certain so I can come to the conclusion. Okay. So everything, cafe and everything was closed. There is an episode over there. People are having Orpheus and Eurydice. That drama has been played again and again because the people of drama, those who are performing the drama, they cannot go back because of the lockdown. So the description that is very similar to the situation of people as well. It is described as the municipal theatre rang to the melodious sighs of Orpheus and powerless plea of Eurydice. The absurdity of human life is such that absorbs people's spirit and zeal of people. Okay, and yes, celebration. If you want to talk about Christmas, okay, people love celebration. Early in the morning when I was reading newspaper, it was said that we will not celebrate 31st as the coming year, but at the end of 2020. That is what someone has said. So Christmas in Oran was empty. Like empty boxes in the windows, passing trams loaded with dark figures, and so on. The element of hope in Camus' themes. Okay, I would like to quote Roland Barthes when he writes about in writing 0 degrees 0, like how Camus present life. Neutral writing is a late phenomenon to be invented only much later than realism by authors like Camus, less under the impulse of an aesthetics of escape than in search of a mode of writing which might at last achieve innocence. These are my reference, and it is the job of thinking people not to be the side of executioner. That is what Albert Camus has written. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. I think Pathan Khan is remaining. Is he ready to make a presentation? Otherwise, this was, I think, the last one.
Yes, sir. This was the last one. Now if
Ah.
answer is ready.
Zafarkhan Pathan, are you there? Yeah, Zafarkhan Pathan. Okay, I think he is disconnected. So that was the last one. And it was a wonderful session. Thank you, Vaidehi, for anchoring the event. And a few instructions for tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we have to start a little bit earlier as we are scheduled early morning at 8 o'clock for the third session of paper reading. And I have also sent a separate email to all these participants to remain present by 7:30. By 7:45, we will open the webinar room, and you all should get entry into the webinar room by 7:45. And before 8, we are going to start our paper reading session. This is the list of the participants who are going to present tomorrow morning from 8 to 10:30 a.m. Yeah. And then we have a plenary after this, where 5 speakers are going to speak up till 1 o'clock, and the remaining paper presentations will be onwards after 1:30 tomorrow. So thank you all of you for a great participation today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.